5:30, and we do have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Community Investment Program Task Force, special meeting agenda. It's Monday, May 23rd, 2022, and it's 5:30 p.m. As authorized by Section 551.071 of the Texas Governmental Code. This meeting may be convened in closed executive session for the purpose of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney on any agenda item herein. The City of Rowlett reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign a regular business session or call executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. To provide comment for the meeting, please send email to citizeninput@rowlett.com by 3:30 p.m. the day of the meeting. And the committee may receive comments on any of the agenda items listed below. Yes, first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from the last meeting. Has anybody had a chance to do that?
I've read them online and I've read them here. I just make a motion to approve as presented.
Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? One abstention. All right, so did we receive any comments regarding tonight's agenda? It's almost kind of sad. Okay. So, being no comments, first item is subcommittee reports and messaging. And I believe that I was on that subcommittee as well as Jeff and Mike. I don't have anything to report on this one specifically. I actually have some questions that we'll bring up at the end, but I don't have any specific items to bring up at this time. Do you, Jeff?
No comment.
Okay. So, outreach. Anybody here from outreach?
Yeah. Richard, myself, Richard, I think has some comments.
It's my understanding that the current charge of the task force is to try to assess the community priority for city government facilities. And on that note, and strictly in the absence of a formal survey instrument of any kind, I have some comments based on very informal conversations with Rowlett neighbors, friends, and family. Farmers market, lunch along kind of thing. My take from those contexts are these. In the absence of having current cost data, it was really hard for me to ascertain realistic sense of the citizens' top priorities for each city facilities. Of course, the first question they asked is how much that's going to cost. And the data we received last time was fairly old, because every year's old and we all know what inflation is doing these days. We all feel that pain. As a result, it was hard to ascertain, except that the animal shelter was mentioned on occasion. However, no surprise, I found really no support for any property tax increase that would be required to proceed with any of the facilities contemplated in the consultant's proposal we were shown at the last meeting. With residents dealing with property tax appraisals right now, the timing on this aspect of our work may not be ideal. Additionally, number two, I found little universal agreement for the proposed Buchanan Park location for the city government facilities complex. Not everyone I spoke to felt this was the best choice. Some, in fact, even recommended other choices, such as keeping City Hall where it is, the current location. I'll conclude at that point.
Can I ask a question on that last comment, and if they supply the information, when they discussed leaving the city location at its current location, does that mean in the existing facility or a new facility at the current location?
I'm not sure that the citizens were prepared to discuss that in depth, but I think the sense I got was that this facility could be either renovated or point being, the location was suggested at several occasions of my contacts. This location, there were several other locations as well. You can discuss if you wish, but that's the essence of what I would like to report for Rowlett. So,
And then I just got one comment, as part, as we talked last time, part of the outreach, I believe, was going to be going to the various boards and groups. So Richard and I are both on the Parks Advisory Board, so it was brought up at the Parks Board meeting last Wednesday week ago. And sort of, okay, this is coming, we're going to be coming to you with a vehicle to use within your sphere of influence and try and gather data. So that's sort of the first rattle out of the box of trying to get in front of these boards. We'll get that a little more formalized after we have a better data collection system.
And Richard, back to the feedback that you got on
Yes, sir.
the proposed location at Pecan Grove Park, did they give a reason why they had concerns about that location?
again, I don't know if citizens are versed enough to really respond to that technicality. I guess one of the senses is that it's very remote. Lack of infrastructure to support a facilities complex such as we saw in the documentation. Concerns I think I heard about perhaps neighbors living in that area not being entirely agreeable to that kind of facility at the park. Again, remember, this is not based on any
Right.
formal, it's just a conversation.
And then, in any of your discussions, did you happen to hear anything about Perfect Park and the proposal for that?
No, sir, not specifically. No, sir. I think my focus in fairness was really more on the facilities. Sure. Nothing like per se.
Any other questions for outreach?
Hey, Eric, I do have a question. Will the outreach group be getting together and putting together a plan of where we're going to do outreach and when we're going to do outreach? I mean, we've done some preliminary with zero information, right? I know you guys were kind of working on messaging, so we would have a story. Laura has got the survey, the flyer will come once I have a message. And I know these guys have actually been working on how to get out the word in education.
So I think what we, let me take a step back. On messaging, I did have some questions regarding what we can and can't do on messaging.
Absolutely.
And we can talk about clarification on that. I know we can't specifically advocate for
Right.
anything. So we can talk about a flyer or that, but as far as getting the message out, we had talked about setting up booths and stuff, and
Yeah.
we did get the event schedule and things.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do is get the event schedule and start committing
Wait,
people
where,
to
what?
that.
Okay. I just misunderstood. I think I thought that's what the subcommittee was really working on is where and when and all that good stuff. So I may have misunderstood.
Okay, and I may have misunderstood too. There's a lot of different activities and events and stuff going on. I met with the co-ed and let them know at the last co-ed meeting what we were doing and to drive them to the survey. But I think our messaging needs to be more aligned with that, to drive them to the survey and let them know kind of what the need is based on that.
Yeah, no, disagree.
So,
Where's the survey being advertised? Is it
It's
just
not yet. It's
Okay.
not.
It's
That's,
not yet.
that is
I was
the
gonna say, I'm like, I totally
No.
missed this.
Hold on.
no, yeah, it's okay. Education?
Lisa and I have been working on this. About a week ago, we came with a script for a series of 2, perhaps 3 videos, around 3 minutes each. They would be somewhat lighthearted and just purely introducing the facilities and some brief shots of them and maybe some needs of them, maybe injecting a little bit from the directors or the heads over those areas and say, here's the needs. The initial script went through Angie and went over to Drew, and Drew and I met last week, and we're scheduled to shoot June 1 for the core piece, which would be just basically the kind of hosts, and then he would plug in site video, any interviews we might do with individual directors, and then these would be released on the YouTube channels, the various channels that we have, probably one week, one the next week, and a third one if we do maybe per park on its own, because that's, you know, more visionary and things. We're trying to cluster the locations based on some interest. You talked about the animal shelter, so in the first video we talked about the city hall, the parks maintenance area, and then the animal shelter, which has probably got more of an interest. So we're going to kind of tease it up to that. The next one we probably do the same sort of thing, maybe building up the library at the end, or the police station at the end. What we would like to have is, before these obviously start releasing, is at the very end of the video, we'll talk about, we'd like to get your survey opinion on what you'd like, so we'd like to have a specific URL, a specific location, and say, hey, you can find out more information than we're providing in this video about the specific age of our structures and the needs that we have on our website for this page going forward. So Drew mentioned that these typical videos get viewership between 2,000 and 3,000. If we got 5%, 10% push to a survey, that's not too bad, a couple of hundred, maybe a little bit more. I think that'd be a good investment in creating this. Drew's going to do, I mean, he seemed pretty excited about the way we're trying to do it, kind of engaged, not real heavy-handed. But again, it will just be saying, hey, Asa and I, we're taxpayers, here's our families, here's kind of what's going on in our city, and we have some opportunities for folks to determine if they want these facilities. So those potential 3 videos would be, you know, start to be ready the 10th or so of June. And if we've got a place to launch them to, hopefully with messaging and everything else, we can get that. I know Angie's looking at some additional information that's probably part of this,
It is.
that we can bake into some of the talking points about the age and the needs and those sorts of things. So, and in addition to that, then Drew also mentioned that you could do, we could do a live stream. We ended up doing a town hall sort of thing. I'm not sure what exactly that would look like. Maybe 3 or 4 folks on the committee would get together and just do a Facebook live stream for 30 minutes, an hour, have some each one talk about a different one of the facilities, allow some questions to be sent in via, email or whatever they are, as long as we can address them from a, here's the facts, as opposed to an advocacy sort of approach. That might be an opportunity.
So I do want to clarify one thing, because Brian and I had this conversation. This is not a bond election, right? So you guys are advocating for them to pick buildings. That's it.
Yes.
So because it isn't a bond election, the advocacy part is a little bit different. You absolutely can talk about how bad a building is, because all we're asking them to do is say, which buildings would you fund if you had to fund one, or if you had the opportunity to build city buildings, right? So it is a little different than a bond election, because you're not advocating for a bond election, you're just advocating for people to be engaged and say, hey, here's what we want to do. That's it.
So we can go a little bit further than just stressing the negative aspect of the facilities the way they are now.
Because it's just about getting people feedback, right? This one isn't about, now, it changes when it becomes a bond election. I think we mentioned to several of you that we are having that conversation with City Council on Friday. Not a 2-hour work session on that, but it is one of our hot topics to talk about. How does this council feel about a November election, November 2022, May 23, November 23? How does that all fall out with the new council, with a lot of new faces on there and what their priorities are? It doesn't change necessarily the mission of this board, right? Because if it gets moved to November 2023, it just means you have more time. And we don't have to meet, 3 times a month, but it just means you have more time to do that once they have that conversation. And they will have a brief conversation about that on Friday.
brief.
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to now behave as if time is of the essence the same way.
Absolutely,
But the reality is, it does seem a little rushed
yeah.
for November. That's just
Yeah.
my opinion. Especially as some of the challenges that have been brought up just in the initial outreach that we've done, you know, kind of the way the community and the citizens are feeling right now and about a potential tax change. I'll just call it that.
And I think you focus on facilities, not necessarily location, because that might change, right? Where does an animal shelter go? We have a couple of different locations one could go, but that's what I would put my focus on for right now, until we kind of know when the election's gonna fall and how much time you have. You're better to figure out what facilities, and I know Laura spent a lot of time doing the survey, but that is what that handout that I gave you is kind of some bullet points. Drew was a little concerned about all the cutting back and forth, and that it would be easier to not, it would save time to not have cutting to somebody else talking and back to you guys talking, even though he could do that at his office. And so his recommendation was, you know, as you guys talk about the facility, have some bullet points there of some of the issues. And so our team got together, it's a kind of a joint collaboration of everybody, and you'll see that it's broken out by the facility, the year it was built, any major renovations, right? So if we painted a building, that's not on there. If we did minor stuff, it isn't included on that list. But any kind of major stuff, maybe what, you know, that this building was originally a school and this is when we moved in, and the police department was originally a business complex. And so, and then staff kind of outlined some current challenges, office space, you'll see them all there. And then the second one is some opportunities for growth if you had a new facility, in addition to just more staff and more parking and, you know, some of that. So you'll see the library on there. RCC is on there. We didn't talk a lot about the senior center edition. I can add it. It just hasn't been a huge priority at the top of the list. I'm not even sure if it's on the survey. I think Laura focused on the big stuff. So that's kind of what we did with that.
If I may, given that our charge is to ascertain community priority, have you or Frank come up with any current cost estimates? Because that's the first thing that people ask.
What is in there as the projected cost is going to be the best
How much
estimate.
will it cost?
Because, and here's why, because if it's 2027 when a building goes up, there is no way for us to guess what that might look like, right? We build a percentage into every CIP bond that we do. We've been pretty accurate to date, pretty close. We've actually been able to do most of them under budget. And so those future numbers that you saw on that slide presentation is kind of the best. And I think Laura's got some of that information. If not, we'll look at the survey and kind of talk through that. But those projected numbers are the numbers that we will use, because those are the ones that the consultant gave us. Instead of us just guessing or adding a percentage, they put a lot of thought into that when they did it. And so they feel that those numbers are still, today, it's hard to predict what 2029 looks like, right? You could hit a recession, everything drop, and us be in a much better place than we are. But those are the numbers that they feel like we should move forward with, those projected numbers that were the second row numbers in that slideshow.
So, assuming, and it could be for all or one individual one, if a bond goes out and is approved on any of these, is the cost of the design and architecture and everything going to be included in that bond, or is any of that going to be done pre?
It would all be done as, because you gotta kind of know what people are gonna approve before you design it, right? This city truly believes in not just designing a bunch of stuff and letting it sit on the shelf. So once we design it, we typically have a plan that either it will hit, so roads and alleys, right? We might build phase 1 and design phase 2. Phase 2 will show up in the very next CIP bond election for funding, because
Right.
it's cost saves us money to design both. It's much less expensive to design both than just to design one and design the other later, so.
I guess the concern I have on that, being on the bond committees before, you know, I realize that part of it's design, but considering the overall price package of this, if we take it in total, it's a much bigger ask than we've asked on previous bonds to date.
Sure.
So it was nice to see, you know, kind of the site layout and the couple of concepts that they had. Like,
Yeah.
if we could trend towards one of those or firm up possible locations more.
Yeah.
And part of that's going to be based on the feedback that we get.
Sure.
But when it goes to the actual
Absolutely.
ballot, I think we're gonna have to get
Yes.
some kind of firmer thing, because otherwise what we're saying is, I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, but this is how much it's gonna cost. Trust us, we'll do the right
No,
thing.
no, 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 100%. Before it goes to a bond election, you're gonna have to know this is the future location of that. And once we know kind of what their priorities are, it's much easier to determine that, right?
Right.
So, I think the plan today is that it would be, and that has been the history, is that the back half of Congrove Park would always be a municipal. When I started in 2011, that's the first thing they said to me, one of these days City Hall's gonna be back there. That could change with the current council, and again, those are conversations we're gonna have, but the previous council, that was the plan. That was the consensus at meetings, was that that would be the future location.
So, and we kind of, you guys, thank you, by the way,
Yeah.
for putting that together, so I was gonna say, get back to.
Sorry, Brian, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine.
But that is how you ended up with a bulleted list, and it was just easier to make sure everybody had it and staff reviewed it, and Brian's also reviewed it. It is a down and dirty list. It's not wordsmith, it's not any of those things. It's literally a bulleted list of all those things, so.
So I think what we probably should do on the committees at this point, we've got the tour coming up on June 4th.
June 3rd, I think.
Or June 3rd, it's a Saturday.
Saturday 4th.
4th, okay. So it wasn't me, excuse me.
My days are.
No, it's all right, I understand. It's every day's Groundhog Day, so it doesn't matter. Until we kind of know the direction that the new council wants to go, we should probably just focus on, this is the state, this is the facility needs that we have,
Yes.
you know, and get information on the community's willingness to, or where their priorities lie, should dollars be allocated that way. Excuse me, because council may, as you said, take a different direction than what the previous council did, but it doesn't remove the need
Yeah.
to start going this way. Okay.
And the investment already in the plan and all of that, right? I mean, there's gonna be a bond election at some point. Maybe it's 2024 when the next CIP bond election is, but I don't think that that is the goal. I think the goal is to do it separate so that you don't jeopardize streets and alleys projects, right? Because we know this is going to cost people money, no question. And we know we will have some more freed up funding for a 2024 CIP bond, trying to get dates right in my head. So that won't necessarily have a tax increase likely with it, a portion of that anyway, so that's all that.
I want to thank you guys for going ahead with the video possibilities. I think that was really very important because it's going to carry the message with regard to the needs. And I would expect it to drive people to the survey, as with the literature, as with the website, and as Michael pointed out, that when we go around to the various boards and commissions, that will be what our objective would be, is to drive people to the survey so that the mayor and the rest of the council can get a better idea of the priorities that the citizens have with regard to the improvements to the city. Whatever that may well be, whether it's City Hall or Hereford Park, it's the idea that everything, I think, at this point, is that whatever we do is to drive people to the survey. Because like Richard and conversations that I've had, there are questions with regard to the site, with regard to the priorities, with regard to putting everything at that particular site, or are there going to be other places around the city? And there should be the timing. Is the timing that's concerned here? Are we going to do it all at one time? Are we going to do it one building at a time? Are we going to do it apartment at a time? Or a combination of departments? A lot of the feedback from the citizens should give us some idea of what's going on out there and how they're going to respond to Angie's bullet points here with regard to the list of things that the city has in terms of needs. So thank you very much for that. I think, at least that's the way I see it. Because the most valuable thing that's going to come from this is some idea of appreciation of the information. Once it's internalized, hopefully, that they're going to give some reasonable response and say, yeah, this needs to be taken care of. And then give us some kind of priority.
One thing I will say, just from quickly glancing at everything, I think when you're pushing public works and city hall versus like animal shelter and public safety, as a citizen, I would want to know why my investment, why my dollars would need to go to city hall versus public safety, right? Like I would need to kind of have a so what. So if my dollars go to city hall, so what? What happens? Like how does that directly impact the city hall versus I can see that we would be able to have more officers and that makes a difference, right? So I think in that communication, I think that's also really interesting, having a point towards that. Why would somebody want to fund the city hall? Otherwise, you're just going to get the most popular, which is not where what's supposed to be.
Is the video from the last meeting, the last ETF meeting that we recorded, is it available?
Yes.
Okay, did you? Okay, go ahead, because that was a big chunk of the first meeting was just going through all the facilities needs. And I'm not discounting what you're saying by any means, but I hear what you're saying. You know, public safety always seems to rank higher, but then we've got the Hereford Park thing in there too, which is kind of being looked at as an anchor for the downtown area. So, yeah, if you get a chance, just go ahead and review that. But I agree that, you know, I foresee that we're going to get a strong opinion
No question.
going towards public works, going towards animal shelter, going towards public safety.
And this, sorry, everyone, this is Missy New. She was unable to join us at the first meeting. But Missy, your question has been, that's one of the questions that ASA brought up also in their messaging, and how this group can answer that for people.
And that's really, I think, what we're looking for this group to do, is talk through that and figure out how do we tell that story, right? Instead of a typical where the city provides all the information, this group is more, that's what they're really geared at, is developing that message and then getting it out in front of the public.
So the short answer on City Hall is people officing in closets. So.
And a one-stop shop, right? Not having to go to 4 different places to get what you need, right? And our building isn't necessarily ADA compliant, only one side is, and the parking's on the other side, so there are a lot of challenges I think you'll see as you go through that and watch that last movie too.
Yeah, messaging can make or break this, for sure. And one of the messaging tools that should be considered is what is the fiscal impact of each of these requests, especially when you go and put it on a survey. People are easy just to hit a button and not understand what that means. And then, you know, maybe aligning it with this proposal is projected to cost this much, which is equal to this much on the property tax rate, which is this much to your average home value. Okay, that is perfect.
Yeah.
That's a great way to inform people, and it's not so scary, because when you think of a property tax rate increase, it's like, oh no, don't even have a conversation. It's like, well, what if it's $20 a year?
Yeah.
And it's the Wiley story, right? Wiley made the decision. Their citizens made the decision. We will pay a little more, so we have centrally located stuff. It is easy to access, that we can do that. And that is how they got their city facilities funded, is their citizens made the decision. We're willing to pay more over X amount of time to be able to get that done. So also one thing that we've done in the past, Eric and Jeff and Mike, last year, we did PowerPoints with the scripts, so everybody's out telling the same story. I'm happy to start working on that if you want.
That would be great, because I
And you
think,
guys, we'll send it out to you, you can tweak it, but everybody will have the exact same PowerPoint and the exact same script when you go out to tell the story, so there's no question. And it's awkward, but it works, and it makes sure that everybody's hearing the same thing, so.
And I think as we go to the events, and no pressure on Drew, but the sooner we can get that video,
Yeah.
if we can actually get that video when we're attending events and stuff, to have that cycling, and, you know, people might come over to talk to us and, oh, what's this about? And then once you bring them in, you can have a more detailed conversation. But these were broken down in the presentation, each of these broken down, and then it's, I forget the number off the top of my head, but what was it was 10 cents or penny per,
One.
I forget.
Penny per 10 million, yeah.
Penny per 10 million,
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
Right. All right, so anything else on committees? Okay, then let's go to review and discuss the survey.
You want to get pizza? You want to take a break?
Do you want to take a break and get pizza?
You guys hungry? Sure, we'll take a break.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah. So the public survey.
Public survey. I'll show it here on the TV. We have iPads
Oh, perfect.
that will be available to you at the events that you go to. We have a desktop kiosk where the survey will be shown at 4 city locations: the library, the RCC, community development, and utility billing. I have a tall stand for City Hall or wherever we want to move it. I have 2 additional of these to have on the tables at special events. And then you can have a handheld to circulate, to walk around special events so that somebody's not tied to a table if you don't want to be. If you have someone extra, can walk around with the survey.
Is it broadband dependent, or can we store the answers disconnected and then download them? Okay.
It's all online. Cloud-based, so, yeah. So it's not going in. Yes, it is broadband, but I believe they have internet. If they don't, we'll make sure you guys have whatever you need.
Well, I'm just thinking about at events and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, could we connect to our own hotspots if we needed to? Okay.
I haven't tried it outside the building.
I know that KRB uses these iPads and they hook up to their Wi-Fi hotspot, so it must not be a problem. That's how we have access to a bunch of iPads. There's also a recycle question.
How many pads did you say they had
I have,
of the handheld ones?
there are 10 in total,
10 in total.
but I have designation for 6, 7,
5 or 6, 7.
8 or 9.
So you'll have 1 or 2 of each of them.
Yeah. So, one of the things that was discussed at the last meeting was kind of a tagline or a catchphrase. And so, building our future is not year-specific or tasks or item-specific. It can cover everything. So the email that we've created is buildingourfuture@rowlett.com. And for input in terms of what our residents want, the very first question is, are you a Rowlett resident? Because special events, you're going to have a lot of people who are not. So if they click no, they get taken to the last part. Would you like information about the following? And this is why we have the recycling questions, because in order to utilize the iPads, we have to incorporate some type of recycling information or education on here. Also,
Can we remove the one that says bond election, at least for non-residents?
I'll see if I can.
Although if that's just going to the last page,
Yeah.
you'd have to redo it.
Have to do it if then.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not a big deal, and I wouldn't expect a non-resident to want information on bond elections.
You notice the recycling questions.
Yeah.
So then it asks for their email and address. Address is not required But the email is, because if you've submitted the form once before, you cannot submit it again. It's one email address, one entry. So that helps with that issue.
You can
So
fill it out
this-
3 times.
Well, but we're also capturing name too, so we can always filter the data.
This was a testing thing. I need to get rid of that. Disregard that. So if you are a Rowlett resident, here's our survey. I don't know if I can make this
The top.
any bigger.
Up at the top of the 3 dots,
3 dots.
top right.
Oh, there you are. Thank you. There you go. Thank you.
Get a little smart. That's very edge, but not my favorite.
Without adding complexity, well, I'll leave.
So this is a kind of a hit and run survey. I've got you here for 5 seconds. Can you answer these few questions for us? Here's some preliminary information. And then if we direct them to the website, that's where you can have more information. And if they want more information about a bond election, we can shoot that out too. Can everyone see this? Okay. So how would you rank the importance of the following facilities? And it lists each facility and their estimated dollar amount. And then you rank it 1 through 6. Now this was the top portion of the list that did not include the renovations to the RCC. These were the more tangible, new facilities. So rank them 1 through 6. Remind people, please use the number only once. So we'll just go down the line.
Will
If
it
you
let
try to
use
reuse
one?
it, yeah.
So in this instance, in this format, it will let you do all ones, and that was one of the things that was commented on when it was being reviewed by the messaging subcommittee. But, and I got through to customer service, and there was a way to do it, but it wasn't accessible to make the form accessible for all users. You could click and drag and put them in order. Like you would click public safety and drag it to where you wanted it to be in the list. There was another option that I found that is a possibility, but I just saw that this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to play with it. But for now, the instructions and whomever is administering, please use only once, is the way to get through that. So then based on your ranking above, would you support a tax increase for your top 3? 1 cent equals $10 million of projects, which translates to an increase of $27 for the average homeowner.
Is that?
27.
Annually.
Yeah.
No, annually, sorry. And like I said, I've read this thing 4 times, and I'm not that to write it out.
Which is
108. No, that's 27. I'm sorry.
And it's at $27 for the average homeowner per 10 million, so that's 50 million and 5.
The 1 cent.
Yeah, the 1 cent.
The 1 cent is $27 per year for the average homeowner. So yes, I would agree to 6 cents because the public safety building is the 60 million. And then the others apply. And then no, I wouldn't support it at all. Or maybe, give me more information, I might answer you. Then, if the city were able to lower the current tax rate before any increase for facilities, would you support an increase? Maybe.
And Laura asked that question because if you guys remember, I told you during the presentation, there is the potential that taxes could lower, and that might be, if you can lower it 3 cents and then the 3 cents pays for a facility, that's why Laura added that question.
Maybe we should reverse the order of the first and second question.
So Hereford Park has been identified as a key amenity in the redevelopment of downtown Rowlett. Phase 1 will begin soon, which leaves Phase 2, which is the active play and dog park area, and Phase 3, the Main Street Plaza, at an estimated $2 million each. So, would you support a tax increase to fund the completion of Hereford Park? Yes, for the $4 million for completion. Yes, for one phase at a time at $2 million. No, or maybe. And all of these are required to go on. And then it asks this information, your email, name, and address, and then I am a human some days. And then you submit the
Was address required there or just?
No.
Just name and email?
Mhm.
Can we go back to page 1? I'm sorry.
Did you know?
So let's just go up from the top. Is there any input, any questions on anything?
Is there a possibility, since locations and everything else aren't set necessarily, is there a possibility that we could do the survey with what would be the priorities for the citizens of each of the facilities without the price? And the reason I ask that is because what if everybody says 100% we need public safety? But we don't necessarily know. I mean, we know that if it goes to Common Grove and there's all this, it's going to be the 60 million. But then if there's all this arguments about that's not logical for the overall vision of the police station being on the other side of 190 and hidden on the lake, et cetera, whatever all these different people say, would it be more valuable to say, to find out what people's priorities would be first and then estimate cost? Because then if everybody just sees 60 million, they're like, no, that's not that important. And
But no matter where we built it, that's what it would cost to build that facility, right?
No matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you if you tore down the building where it is, I don't know what we'd do with them. But if you
Yeah.
tore it down there and built it there, that's the cost of the facility. Remember, if you remember, the infrastructure,
Yeah, I think the number, I think.
the infrastructure is a different cost.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think without that transparency, we're gonna get a whole bunch of no's on the low.
And it explains what that means. I think that's just really well done, is that, okay, and this is what that means. It's
Yeah.
1 cent per 10 million. I mean, so I think that's great information, and it really does it daylights it so well that I think people really, now they can make a choice. They can do in their head, okay, well, that's $120 a year if we want a new justice center. I mean, then people, they make an informed choice. And I don't know that people necessarily need to just know. I mean, I think they do if there's not information there. I do think they need to know, because it's a black box.
Yeah.
When it has a number there, now they say, yeah.
One other question I have. I like separating out Hereford Park, that's good. What about the idea of the clustering of some of those facilities as we discussed last time? You've separated them out as a priority option. What about asking if they were interested in clustering City Hall with police and so forth? Does that make sense? Is that an option that's worth exploring?
I don't know that that's up to our citizens to decide how they will cluster, right? So,
Or if.
right, or if. That's really not for our citizens to decide. Once we decide which facilities, our city council is gonna make the decision of where, and our city council is gonna make the decision of, the intent is to have a complex, have a one-stop shop for everybody, wherever that is. If it's on Mars, you pull up, you have the police station, you can run over and pay your water bill, you can get a permit to put your fence in, and you can jet, right? Because right now, the whole purpose is you have to drive all over town to get what you need. So I think that's gonna be a city count. I don't foresee them saying we're not going to cluster it, we're gonna put them back all over town again. Because kind of the whole point of having a municipal complex is they're all together. So I don't know that that's a
I understand your
citizen.
point, but are we interested in knowing what the folks think?
Well,
This
this
is-
is getting what the folks think, because your whole task
Is
is to
order of facilities.
prioritize.
That's it.
not to group, and not for the citizens to group.
Right.
So if I want a public safety building and a library and an animal shelter, and you group
You're gonna
them
make
together,
those 2 and 3.
then, you know, and it may be clustered according to the outcome of the input that we receive.
Because if you want the top 3, then you're gonna put 1 as police, 2 as library, 3 as animal shelter, and they might not all be in the same place, right? Probably a municipal complex would not have an animal shelter. An animal shelter requires a lot of outdoor room and dogs barking and a lot of other services, so they typically are not necessarily located at a municipal complex, but, you know, parks maintenance, probably not located, public works, probably not located at a municipal complex because of the maintenance element of those things, right?
Sure,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I just think currently this board's charge is what facilities and what priority order, because I think council's ultimately gonna be the one that decides the location. And that'll be a different fight to fight, right? And that'll be a set, this is where it will go before we ever go to bond election. But I think that will default to council to make that decision. And then, of course, because if you don't put it on property we already own, then we have to purchase property, so.
Well, this instrument doesn't address at all the location.
Yeah. No, on purpose.
Yeah, that's
It
the,
was just a clustering aspect.
Yeah.
Hey, Sid, you have a question?
I was wondering on the order of this. Is there any thought on the order of selection?
This is taken directly from the presentation.
That is exactly how the public and council saw them in that order.
And again, it's not for us to set an order.
Right, I understand.
What will accompany this when it goes out to the PowerPoint presentation, or is it just the survey itself?
So at the events, it'll be the survey and the volunteers providing additional information. There will be a city website, a webpage for this, so which will have other information and a link to the survey. The flyers that go out will have preliminary information and a link to the survey. So it's,
We talked about the trifold too, didn't we?
It'll probably be a one-page flyer. Those are much easier. You can do 2 half pages, and that way you hand them to people. So with a barcode that takes you to the website and a barcode that takes you to the survey or whatever we need to do. So
Can I maybe suggest something? Go down to the parks, the Hereford Park. I mean, when you look at it, the 4 million is a bargain. That's 4/10 of a cent right? Is there some way to kind of break out what that costs the citizens? Again, that's something
Just to
I'm really
repeat it?
passionate about. Yeah, to say what that costs, because that really is not going to cost much.
So,
And I think if they can look at it and say, oh, you mean we can do all this and it's only gonna cost me, whatever it is, $18 a year, that's
No, not even that.
a mark, yeah, not even that. And, I just think that might be helpful.
would you like to repeat the entire paragraph?
No,
Or just
I-
have it as part of the answer, like 44 cents, like on the first one, yes for all, 4 million to completion, 0.4 cents per.
Parentheses,
right.
0.4 cents.
0.4 cents
This much a
equals-
year for
yeah.
average on that.
Right.
Yeah, I think you can do it that simply. And I think, again, I know we're not in the promotion business, but
Well,
I
messaging
kind
is
of
very
am.
important.
yeah,
I think that would help, that part of it.
We ever set ourselves up to fail, messaging is super important.
I didn't wait for more.
Laura's making notes.
I know.
She's not right over here, but she is really good at multitasking. I'm gonna give her a lot of credit on that.
So can we go back up to the questions really quick, or the order? So any other questions on this? Any other
I mean, we
feedback
can
on
put them
this?
in alphabetical order, if we do that, nobody's gonna notice that we do that. This is just literally the order that they were on the presentation to city council, so Laura left them in that.
The only thing would be from high to low, I
Yeah.
guess. That would only change, that would only swap.
Yeah.
Which would put it in order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why it was like, okay, just random.
Can we get on to the next question? Any questions, comments, feedback on the wording on the question?
So if they say no or maybe, could we have a text box open up so they can say why they have a disagreement or something like that? Now, standing there with something handing them, they're not gonna spend time typing
Yeah,
something in. But if this is the actual on website, we might be interested in getting a line or two from them.
We
Well-
probably want to keep all the data in the same
So it
database.
needs time to format all that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
What does it
how are you gonna get that to
A
the
priority
body?
list, what does that mean in a priority list?
Can we remove the 10 million from projects? Because I think, like, I had to read that 5 times before I understood. Because what we're saying is 1% on tax rate equals an increase of 27 for that.
But it's $10 million worth of projects, right? So each penny gets you $10 million.
So in other words, on that first one, the first choice of 6 cents,
Yeah.
it would be 6 times $27 for the average person.
Yeah. And that buys you a public safety facility.
Yeah.
That's what 6 cents gets you.
So, but the options that we give them, what's the outtake that we're looking for from this question? If the majority of them say we're willing to do 5 cents, does that kind of tell you something? What's the outtake?
All it really tells us is that if police is number 1 and you're only gonna do 5 cents, we're not ever gonna match it up, right?
Right?
But if you're willing to do 4 cents and police is number 1, you can reprioritize based on that. What would be the public's, yeah, police is number 1, but they're only willing to do 4 cents. So you guys are gonna have to take that information and decide what is the priority list going forward.
Because the way I look at it, what the options we give them, it doesn't let you really combine a big project with some smaller ones. So I'm wondering, survey's only as good as what are you gonna do with that result?
I think if you look at 6 cents and it's, let's say, animal shelter and, well, for grins and giggles, right? It's animal shelter and parks maintenance building. That's only $9 million. So 6 cents will actually buy you 2.5 buildings in that case. I think that's how you'll have to use it. Just until you want them to have a feel of what does that really translate into, I think. Because I might rank police number 1, but I might not be willing to pay 6 cents for it. You know what I mean?
I think we're gonna get,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're
I
gonna
think
get
so.
contradictory.
I think it just gives us a better feel, as staff, a better feel for what our public is willing to pay in a bond election. It doesn't change how you rank facilities, because that first question really does that, I think.
Yeah.
I could be
Well,
wrong, but I think,
I think it'll help us show too if the priorities align with what they're willing to, what tax rate they're willing to absorb.
yeah,
Well, and I think maybe.
Like you said, if it's public
But
safety,
we
you're
never
saying
give
3
them an
cents.
option.
But maybe it even directionally shows if they say public safety is number 1 and they just look at it and say that I'm willing to do 4 cents, it just makes, what they're telling you there, I'm willing to accept a tax increase.
yeah.
They're not doing the
That's
math
true.
in their head necessarily.
Right.
They're saying, yeah, directionally I'll accept a
Yeah.
tax increase. Number 1 thing I see is public work. So I think you can extrapolate from that a certain amount. I mean, what I love about this and what we really talked about last time, and I think is so well done here, it's fast, it's easy, it's concise. I mean, you can get off in the weeds with this real fast, adding this, adding that, clarifying this, bundling this and that. I mean, this is, for what our objective is and what we've been tasked to do, to my mind, this is just, man, this is right down the line with what I kind of was thinking of, so.
Would it address,
I just think it's really well done.
I'm sorry, Mike, would it address your concern if we put the footnote that we're talking about 1 cent for 10 million? And explain how you come up with that? Is that getting to what you're
I
concerned?
just feel like my sense is that we're limiting the maximum, we're allowing them to tell us what they want to do, 6 cents.
You're
Which
saying
doesn't-
maybe,
it just-
yes, 10 cents, yes, 8 cents, yes, 6
Just,
cents.
I don't know. if
Well,
Up to 10, up to 8, up to 6, up to 4.
I don't know, it just, again, if the answer is 4 cents and public safety is the number 1 item, what do we do with that? Are we building part of that, or because it sounds like they're like number 1, and maybe number 1 and number 2 are both above 40 million, I don't know if you have number 36. guess it's your next class.
Verizon, maybe just add 10, 8, just add 2 numbers to it.
Well, in marketing, like whether you're selling something like a gym membership,
You're saying-
there's the high price, the medium price, and the low price.
Nobody's gonna-
And so,
Yeah.
yes, you don't need more than 3 choices because it'll be confusing.
Yeah.
But then, if you want 6 cents, because you know public safety is the priority here, then what we do is we just say 7 cents, 6 cents, or 5 cents.
Well, I think
Most
too,
people are
you
gonna
want
choose the
to look
6
at,
cents. 'Cause they're-
don't want to immediately turn people off, right? If they see 10 cents, they're out.
Yeah.
You told me 10 cents, I'm not even finishing the rest of the survey, I'm just clicking not at all, not at all, not at all.
That's gonna kill us on messaging.
I think it's just finding out what people are willing to do, right? Obviously, they're not gonna pay, probably would not pay 2 cents, but then that gives council the information they need to decide how to take this forward. And that's really the point, right? Do they group it? Do they put it all out there? Do they, you know?
Well, plus it's to get a feel out in the
That's
current situation.
Yeah. That's,
You know, they could rank
All
them
of
1
it's-
through 6, and then they say, everybody says, no, none at all, and it's, you know, at that point, okay.
So all of it's 14.3.
yeah,
What's that?
All of it is 14.3 cents.
yeah.
Which is how much to
That's
average?
14 times 40 minutes.
14 times 27.
Oh,
That's
$1.
378 a year for the average homeowner.
Almost 5 a month. a year.
378 a year for the average homeowner.
And that's average.
Yeah, which is 2 something, 200,000.
I agree, not too many choices. I think the whole point of this question is just to take the temperature of the public.
Mhm.
What are you willing to do, right? It's going to cost you. There's no stuttering about that. What are you willing to do? And I think it's really just taking the temperature.
Would there be value in when we're setting these rates on the average household, how much it's gonna cost to put in the year that figure is calculated from? Is that 2022 or?
So we don't have current numbers because it all depends on the valuation of
On
it,
DCAT,
right?
right.
So we won't have DCAT numbers till August.
Yeah.
So this is kind of just this is based on last year.
Okay,
Right?
that's fine.
It's what we base everything on. And
Yeah.
all of our stuff that we do, that's what it is.
Well, you have to budget that way
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Now, I'd like to go back and consider again the drop-down box on the maybe, or maybe slash comment, largely because that's going to be able to give you an answer to some of your questions here about grouping, about whether or not you want to spend more than 6 cents.
Perhaps we change it from maybe to other with a comment option.
Yeah,
Well, and then what y'all
Oh,
can,
then
know-
you have-
I know
then
that
you
you're
have
going to
people
get a lot of
standing there with
responses.
your-
Trying to type in an iPad.
Trying to type on an iPad while they've got baby in tow or people waiting on them or,
Well, most of it's gonna be on the
I don't
web,
think there's
though.
gonna be a
right?
lot
I'm
of
here
people
telling you
say.
that fewer than you think will do it on the web. The majority will do it while you're standing there in front of them, or they will do it at that thing.
The other side of that though is,
Probably 10% of the people will actually go to the web and mess with it. Most of them are gonna say, oh, I see you, I'm gonna do it right
Why
now.
would somebody answer maybe? That's
the
somebody
other
just
question.
being lazy.
I was gonna say,
Not
just
wanting
delete
to put
maybe.
it, you know, that's an easy
Yes
answer.
or no.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
think the
don't like
sense is
maybe.
good.
you can't really
So I-
analyze maybe.
Yeah.
and I think for the ones who can choose other, who don't have the baby in tow and stuff, or maybe have another opinion,
They're gonna be getting.
we might get more valuable data from an other with a comment field
Yeah.
than a maybe, because we don't know what they're answering maybe to.
And then what y'all can do as a group is evaluate, you know, is there a majority view of that other to give to council? As this was the majority of what the other had said about this topic.
Maybe that's something that just comes out of conversation, right? Is you clicked maybe, what? What is that?
so
well,
How
this is the
about-
way that you get the conversation.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying with the drop-down box, that you're going to be able to get that conversation. And don't always assume that they've got a baby in tow. There's going to be a lot of them answering online. I mean, there are a lot of tools involved here, but nevertheless, you want to try and get as much information as you can. And you're limited by being too concise.
Well, and I think if we have an other with a comment option, we might pick up the ones that we were talking about that we're not getting at the upper range, from people who might want to go more than
6 cents.
6 cents. You know, we might pick up some people, what's it gonna cost, I'll do it. I don't expect that, but the maybe, it leaves too much, maybe I will, maybe I won't, maybe I just,
You can't analyze me.
we can't analyze maybe.
No.
I mean, if they don't leave a comment, we can't analyze other either, but it gives an option.
So do you want to leave it free form for other, or do you want to provide other choices?
Can you
So
just like
if-
click box at the end, that's just like additional.
Free form limited to 80 characters. Maybe next year, or I'm actually an apartment owner, I'm not sure how this will impact me, you know, because I'm not paying for it.
You were very precise with the yes, 6 cents, yes, 5 cents, yes, 4 cents. I see maybe as possible, like, yeah, but the 6, 5, 4 doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But, I mean, let me.
Or maybe if I had more information.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Maybe
Because
I
we
go higher,
could do
or-
that, if they click the maybe, we're gonna have their name and email, we could send out an email and say, hey, you did survey, you clicked maybe, can you provide us some additional information?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think maybe means other than no.
yeah, it's just good.
And
You know, there's
it's hard
no,
on the spot to get
there's
people to
yes,
fill in
and
other
there's
boxes, I'll tell
other
you, we
than
do
no.
these all the time, right?
So-
Parks and Rec does them all the time, this kind of survey at an event, how many people are in your party, how much money have you spent? But they're not so apt to start typing stuff in that environment,
No, I think that's,
so.
Mike made a point, right? It's getting a feel for yes or no. Like, somebody's gonna be like, no, none at all, no matter what, I don't care, no, no, no. And that's what that did, and then the maybe is like, I can't do the math in my head.
Or maybe is, I don't really want to focus, I don't want to answer, it's kind of neutral.
There's not much you can do with a maybe.
Yeah, it's,
But.
But it's
you-
not a no.
But
But
you
it's not a
tie it
no.
with the ranking, it's not, the maybe doesn't exist by itself, the maybe exists with the ranking 1
Yeah.
through
It's
6.
still valuable for the ranking. You know, I would take 1,000 maybes with prioritizing the
Right.
Over
facilities
no's, absolutely.
over just a bunch of no's, or just not filling it in at all, because
Yeah.
what if it's just yes, 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 no, and you're like, well, my answer's not there.
I agree with you, Jason, that's a good point.
Is it at all anticipated that with the information they're provided with emails and so forth, that we would have a follow-up with individuals?
Like we know.
Very nice.
You guys
So
would not
we
be
would
challenged
know
with
what
that.
they think
Staff
you
could reach out as, or this board after this process, you know, we got to, hey, this is our recommendation to council. The first question tells you mainly what you need, right? The second question and the third question kind of tells staff and council, here's what we're willing to contribute for that. I think.
You got-
But if there's not a follow-up on the maybes, just saying, hey, you answered maybe on this question.
And like I said, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to respond and say, hey, you filled out a survey and you said maybe on the tax increase, tell me what that meant. And they can send me an
Okay.
email.
Did the
So-
last, did
If
the
you want
last
me to do
page,
that, I'm
did the
happy.
last page of this after the name and everything, did it have a comment section? Do I recall or not?
No.
Okay, that's not good.
Okay, so we're good on the question after the priority with the sentence, and we're gonna leave it at maybe?
Yeah, and a comment section of some kind, people can explain.
That's what I mean, if we leave the baby, I'm happy to, once they come in, follow up, and we'll get them relatively quickly. I think Laura gets them almost instantly, so
Okay.
we will have to have their email, it's a requirement. I'm happy to email and say, hey, you did this, tell me what that means. Tell me what maybe meant to you, in a few words.
I've done surveys before where I will not choose the one that requires me to type something in.
Yeah, I won't
It's
either.
annoying me. I'm
Lisa,
like,
I
"Oh,
100% on
crap." Go back.
Yeah, even our Parks Master Plan, comment sections, we either got something crazy, or we got something we did not understand.
Yep, I remember
And
that.
very, I mean,
Yeah.
very few actually said this, and you could use that in some way.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's not going to make complete sense.
But do we know, or at what point will we know that the city council will find this instrument, provide them the information they need to make the decisions that they need to make?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
At what point will we know the city council is comfortable with this instrument? That it gives them the information that they're gonna need to make the decisions that they're
July
gonna make?
19th.
So
Are they
remember,
gonna sign off
city
on
council
this?
isn't gonna sign, this is a board-driven initiative. And you're going to make the recommendation to council, this is the priority order of facilities.
We will, right, we will take this information that we get
Yeah.
and use it to help drive our recommendations.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that what information we give them, they can use to make decisions that we make with this instrument.
Yeah. I think staff can guide, if this was the survey today as it was, and you guys prioritize, and this is number one and this is number two, I believe that as staff, I could use the rest of the information to say, here's where citizens sit, right?
Have y'all found that people understand the connection between the 1 cent to 10 million to?
Most of it will. It's a story we tell a lot during bond elections, so that people can wrap their head around what it costs.
The property owner.
And
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, and in budget, it's also in budget.
Especially when like Drew does his videos
Uh-huh.
and he does a pretty good job of explaining it in layman's terms, 1 cent is, $27 is this much to you.
Yeah, a cup of coffee this often. Some won't, and it is what it is, right? But for those that are dialed in to budgeting in the city and how much it costs them to pay for services, absolutely.
And do you feel like that's the target audience that you want to fill out the survey?
What do you
Well,
mean? They're everybody, we want everybody, any resident. And that's what I'm saying, is some will get it, but if you open our budget document today, every department has this costs you 6 cents a day. This costs you this amount a day. So every department has that in it to help break it down for any resident to look at and say, okay, that's gonna cost me $27. That's the tie back to the cost of the specific resident.
So I'm a homeowner. This is like my first experience with this level of city government. I understand how much, like when you tell me it's gonna cost me $27 or it's gonna cost me $300, I understand that. But if I'm standing at like a kiosk and I have like 1 minute, I'm not sure I would have enough understanding to sit there and be like, okay, so 1 cent means 10 million and I just wanted a police facility that's 60 million. Like, is there an opportunity at where it says 6 cents to actually just translate that into the total sum that you're wanting?
So you're saying,
That'd be
yeah, I'd say equals
$162.
60
Exactly.
per year.
That's actually good data to put down there. Yeah.
Because that might give you faster results of, I'm willing to pay between $300 and $500. I'm willing to pay $200, $150 to like $300, right? Versus 1 cent.
I think, I know the reason we often might not necessarily just put it in that dollar
And
term.
it's changing, it's a moving target too, right? Which makes it
But at the other
You
time,
can estimate it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
people can estimate it. Because then they log it, then they go back and say, no, you said $422. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, it's the nature of.
but the other side of that is, I understand too, not
Yeah.
having to sit there and try to compute the math.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like, what's 14 times 27, and pull out a calculator.
We all
out there,
understand what that
Right.
means, but for people who have not been involved in city government at all, they're gonna see that and it's not gonna make much sense.
That's what I'm saying, so it might work actually, the transparency, to just say, that's what this equals.
Yeah.
Say like, yes, 6 cents parentheses, whatever that number is on the estimated cost.
$27 or whatever it was. 162.
Yeah, 162 ABG.
Yeah, so it's estimated 162, and just do that for 654, and then you've got more of a, they're not doing the math in their head.
I'd still keep the above explanation in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can see how the math is calculated, but yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Agree?
more information.
Everybody? Okay. And I think that might, if we can do that for each one, I think that will help us on the Hereford one too, if we're just doing that calculation. Whether it costs you $20, or whatever. Right, it's gonna cost you
$7.
$7.
I gave you that math back.
0.5.
Since phase one will begin soon, it's a little confusing to me whether that's part of what is being asked to pay for phase one. It's like that ship has sailed. So say phase one is previously funded and will begin soon, which leaves phase two and phase three. Does that make sense?
So our citizens actually approved phase one in
I
the
understand,
election.
I understand
Phase
that.
one
But it just says
has been
phase one will
funded.
begin soon, with the same.
Phase one.
It has been funded and will begin soon.
Yeah.
That verbiage to it, but that's.
Yeah, phase one has been funded, that kind of clears that.
That's what I'm saying, we need to insert.
We might actually want to say, this question is regarding phase 2 and phase 3, and just clarify it that way there's no confusion.
Phase one approved as part of the 2018.
Funded, not approved, funded.
Oh, actually, and then if you put the three pictures together, like, and the middle one in there, and it shows funded, then that might, I mean, for me, that would love me, I'd be like, we need it approved. If we've already, we're about to start in the middle of it.
That's a good point.
For top.
Do we have,
That would be motivating.
I'll see if I can do that.
I'll grab it before I got this.
Just drop it in.
if phase 1's a lot of groundwork though, and prep
Because we
stuff?
could not add all that text, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Phase one won't look like phase one.
Looks like
At the end of
dirt.
phase one, it's gonna look like a bunch of dirt. With the potential to grow grass.
But isn't there a middle piece that's missing? Or is that just?
Phase one is mainly just land sculpting, taking stuff down, that kind of stuff. That'll be, most of phase one is deconstruction of the current
Infrastructure,
things.
yeah.
There'll be some, but not, most of it'll be built in phase two and phase three. There's just so much land work and taking out streets and that kind of stuff.
All those old light poles and
Yeah, it's gonna be very expensive.
parking lots and restrooms.
Yep.
Do we understand that phase two must precede phase three? Is it possible someone could pick phase three as their priority?
Council has prioritized phase two to be the phase two and phase three to be phase three. So that is that,
Understood.
yeah, yeah. And this is asking about both. This isn't separating them and letting the citizens pick which one they want. This is a package of phase two and phase three. Laura has, yeah, I'll pay for one, or yeah, I'll pay for both, but, and we could pull out just phase two, but council prioritized the phases.
Any other questions on this question? Okay. Go next. Last page. So that's that, that's required. Anything else here?
Why wouldn't Rowlett and Texas be pre-populated? That's Rowlett resident.
If
No.
they answer no, it takes them to
They're a
this page.
visitor.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right, this is potentially.
anybody could pull it out.
Yeah.
They'll just get the first one and the last one.
Is verifying you are human going to make identify buses or stop signs?
Probably not.
Or
Does
is
it
it
not?
just click
No,
it?
just click it.
Okay.
I can add that if you want
No,
to.
Please click the ones with the bridges, you can't see any of the pictures
Yeah,
because
it
they're
takes
all
me
low.
about-
At least the new ones are nicer. Please select the one that's oriented correctly.
Crosswalk,
Yeah.
please pick the crosswalk, please pick the traffic lights, and please pick the
No allowed
bridges.
daily check.
Those are the three that I get all the time.
No allowed dollar check.
Anything else on the survey? I do have a question. So does this need, after Laura makes the changes, does this need to come back for further approval? Or I would actually, I don't have a problem not advertising it yet, but if we want to put it out there and make it accessible, because we know we have those folks who will dig around. I think we put it out, if we happen to get some low-hanging fruit and people just coming across it, that's fine too.
And if it's ready to go by the end of the week, I mean, even as early as, starting next week,
There's events coming up and
yeah,
stuff.
I'd
the
say-
lunch on the lawn, the Thursday farmer's market, I mean, there's no reason, and this is really what we've been waiting for, and I don't know, unless I'm missing something, is there a reason to put this off until after the videos, and the videos will certainly help, but
But I
if
can't
you're
just
doing
try.
if you're doing a face-to-face, I think it's pretty,
Yeah, what I could do, Eric, is try to get the PowerPoint together relatively quickly.
Okay.
And that way, at least, you'll have that to help you tell your story. I can send it to you guys as the messaging committee,
Yeah.
because that's really what the message will be. I don't know that it'll happen this week, but I will do my darndest early next week. And then everybody will have it, and then absolutely we can.
Well,
close out.
we're going into a holiday weekend and stuff too, so I don't think there's a big priority there. Are we doing
Yeah.
anything, is the city having any events for the holiday weekend?
Memorial Day, just the Memorial Day
ceremony.
ceremony.
It's
It's
Okay.
just out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's not really an event like our typical events.
And I think I asked you this, and I think you answered, and I think I did write it down. Did Drew have any indication on when he thinks he might have the first video ready for production? June?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, all right. So by that time, we will have the facilities tour. Hopefully, we will have gotten to a couple events like the farmer's market and stuff with the survey out. We need to get together and figure out the brochures and what we want to have on it. And I guess we can either do that via email or subcommittee meeting on that.
I'll tell you, we have a lot of luck with just one page, either a full
Yeah.
page or a half page, no fold outs, not a lot of text, big bold, here it is, here's what we want your feedback on, and here's the link to the survey.
Yeah,
And Parks and
Okay.
Rec, they just learn pictures when, and words don't. They use Canva, and it's a bunch of, if you look at any of the flyers for Parks and Rec now, they're all just pictures and big words.
But for the events, is there gonna be, you have like just one of those, tent looking things with the table?
That's the next
so
item.
that's the next item. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
So any other discussion on the survey?
I'll review it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Next item is review equipment and logistics for events.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we're gonna need the iPads. So if we can kit this up in something that's portable so that whoever's going to a certain event can either grab it or staff can drop it off at the location. We probably want an easy up, a table, the iPads, 4 chairs.
You ready for show and tell?
Sure, let's see it.
Okay.
Laura has not been playing, y'all.
Somebody's been way ahead of this.
Did you get a custom easy up?
Nope.
Oh, no, they're $600.
That's why I asked.
We have 2 of these
Okay,
in case there are 2 events. So like somebody wants to go to an HOA meeting or there's a special event, we have 2 of these. 6-foot tables, they fold in half, so they'll fit in any car. We have 4 of those. We have the kiosks for the tables.
Mr. Mayor, will you hold one side, please?
I got it. Laura, I got it.
I'll sit.
That's big stuff.
Maybe.
Oh, I love it.
Ooh.
These things smell. They smell like your office.
Nice.
Ooh, oh. So it has the email at the bottom. And again, it's for every
It's
project.
perforated so it won't blow away in the wind.
Yeah.
Or tear.
So this is to hang at the back of the tent. Then we have, yeah, all that comes.
Zip ties. Zip ties. Bungees.
And how many of those, you have 3, 4?
I have 1 of those.
One of those, okay.
But I have 2 of the smaller ones.
Nice.
That is, oh, nice.
Very good.
And we did something that could always be used regardless of the
Yeah.
bond election.
Yeah.
Going forward, we have a
Yeah.
name, right? We have a name and an email. It doesn't have to change 50 times.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, it smells good.
So, that's awesome. The question is, where is this gonna be located so that we can?
Here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we have a Saturday event or something, pick it up the
Pick it up
day
on
before.
Friday.
Pick it up on Friday and then bring it back Monday. The way the iPads are set up, they're set up to never go off. You'll be given a charger. They'll be fully charged for each session. You'll be given a charger along with any passwords that are needed in case it does go off. Once, like for example, this is in kiosk mode, and it won't, once someone fills it out, it'll come back to the first page to be ready to go to the next person. You have to have a password to get out of kiosk mode, so somebody wouldn't accidentally turn it off.
If you don't want to tell us that, I won't be upset. I just.
But you'll have that information in case something happens, and it's very easy.
If someone partially fills it out and then walks away, is there just like a cancel button or do we back?
Back.
Okay.
Actually, I'll have to figure that out because I've had to exit kiosk mode and then go back. But I'll figure out if there's a clear or something like that.
And in fairness, we could have an event conflict because these iPads are part of a recycle grant. And so if they have a recycle ban event and they have to take the ban and the iPads, it's paid for with their grant, so they're gonna have first priority of that, right? So, but that doesn't mean you won't have flyers, you don't have the other stuff you can talk through and barcodes and such, so folks can do it right on their phone.
Other than Farmers Market, Arts has a Barks, Brews, and Brats event on the 11th. Is that even over the next?
Yeah, let's,
So
can you pull up on the big screen, like what the city calendar is for parks and stuff and boards and commissions, and we'll start divvying them up now. I mean, I think it's easier to do that way.
I think that's in the CIP.
While you're doing that, I just, kind of just a question, are we able to, I don't know, it wouldn't be, just sort of kind of freestyle this, like, for example, go out to community park on a Saturday morning when there's a zillion people out there and just set up randomly, even set it up front of Tom Thumb. I mean, you know, just anywhere where you might be, if you got a couple hours, you say, hey, just a place where people are gonna be and just set up, there's no prohibition in our.
No, my only request would be that if you're gonna do that, please do it with a buddy,
Yeah.
partner up with somebody.
Okay.
And you might do
For
flyers
safety
or
reasons
something
more
like
than
that.
anything.
I mean, we have folks just show up, you know, like our staff will just go out and hand flyers out. Don't put them on cars. That's actually illegal. But handing a human a flyer or saying, hey, I have this, we scan this barcode real quick and fill that out. You could also do that. And then you don't have a tent and a table and because iPads and all that, but.
The one pager that we're looking at, can we get a QR code on there? They could hit with their phone,
As
just
soon
jump
as
into
we
the
have this
survey.
done, it will have a QR code at the bottom.
Because that might be an easier way to hand them the thing. Hey, if you want to hit this survey right
But I'm
now.
just saying, any place that has lots of foot traffic with different, could you know, I can't prove it, but I think there's probably a core of people who tend to go to the city events more than
Yeah.
others. Everybody goes grocery shopping, you know, and maybe your outreach is a little bit wider if you kind of maybe go to some of these
I'll let IT.
outside of the city type of events.
That's how you get the accurate poll data. You go everywhere.
Yeah. I just want to make sure there wasn't some conflict or some,
It's not that big.
something you couldn't do that.
It's just all at IT. It's put it in there.
Library's a good place to go.
Well, library will have one in it.
Oh,
They'll have it.
Parks and Rec, my staff is crazy, but Parks and Rec staff, they go walk through the car pickup line. Y'all don't have many more days to do that, but they literally have walked through the car pickup line and handed moms
Really?
yeah, the flyers or for whatever, you know, upcoming events and stuff, so. There's a lot of opportunities, and the flyers are easy. If you want to do that, let us know, we'll make it a half page, and it's even easier to hand out, right? But it is illegal to stick them on cars, so don't do that.
Or put it in mailboxes.
Yeah, don't stick them in mailboxes.
sheets.
Chick-fil-A line, numbers in there.
Yes.
You know, start
Do you know if organized diversity and inclusion board
Here's the project you're paying.
is going to have that 5K on the 16th?
He's dressed nicely.
I do not know.
I can call her.
I haven't heard anything about it.
So I asked if we could support it from CERT.
they're not gonna do that. They're gonna do a, some kind of event. It is an event, but they replaced it with.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen any special events come through. 5K Chamber has one coming up, July 4th, that day.
All right. Well, that. You don't have this. Okay. So farmer's market, anybody been going on Thursdays? typically go?
Sir,
I think, yeah, they did extend it, right, through July 18th.
I'll do farmers market at Marks.
And Barks, Spruce and Broks, okay. Anybody else want to help out on those?
That does help if
Rather
there's
have
two.
fairs, yeah.
It's kind of hard for me to do that. I'm not trying
A
to-
spreadsheet or a calendar.
Yeah, but if they. but if
Can we do
possible,
this?
have a
Can
sign up
you
and
send that out to us?
No, I haven't had a chance to do that.
No, that's
but
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you can send this out to us, and let's try to get approval or responses back by the end of this week.
Yeah. that'd be-
About what you're
I gotta
interested in.
look at Stuff, I can't just make
Yeah, 'cause it's hard without my 3 calendars in front of me.
yeah, that's kind of right, that's kind of right. It's Tuesday, must be.
I'll be at fireworks on Main, I know that.
Yeah.
Everybody will play fireworks on Main and shifts. It's a long
It's a long
afternoon.
way off.
And have multiple booths, I assume.
Usually just one.
And typically, I'm at all the front summer concert series, so I could cover those just off the top of my head.
Our recommendation would have sailed by then.
Possibly. Remember, there is potential that it could change, right? So,
It's always better to plan, and
yeah,
if it
that's
ends
why
up
I had
extending
to take them all
out,
off and then I put them back because I was like, whatever, I'll add them. And if on July 19th you say this is it and council says go, then we start the next phase of it.
So is anybody on this commission, on any of those other city boards or commissions? If they just want to take the lead on that? Okay.
2 on parks.
All right.
I'm on KOB and Marks.
Okay, and I'm on the co-ed, so I'll hit that one again.
But I'll get you a PowerPoint that's very well scripted, that all you do, that the script's actually printed out. So that way you don't get thrown any curveballs, right? So you still do, but you can say call Angie or Laura when you get thrown a curveball.
And I can probably do the animal shelter advisory board. or
We'll
animal
need to
services.
confirm their meeting. They only meet a few times a year.
Right,
So I'm not, that's why it says May, June. I'm not sure when their next meeting will be.
Okay.
But we can confirm that.
So I think I asked this last meeting, but if we're gonna go to one of the board meetings, we need to let them know to have it on the agenda.
yes.
So they've been notified that we'll need a spot on their June agenda.
Yeah.
And so I will touch base with them and get those specific dates and send that out with this.
Do we really want to worry about the BOA since it's,
I just went down the board list. It's up to y'all. I don't know if they have a meeting coming up. They've met a couple of times, so I'm not 100% sure when their next meeting will be.
okay. Yeah, so can we?
Like I didn't put PNC on, right? Because PNC is kind of a different animal. So,
I'll do the arts and humanities. Second Tuesday.
just sign up on Larson's.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, let's just send it out and then we can all check our calendars and send it back. Do we have a SharePoint site or anything? So you're not having to manage multiple versions of the document?
Google,
I'm gonna figure that out.
We'll figure it out.
See if we can do it.
Or Teams or something?
I'm gonna see if we can do it.
All right, because that would be easier, because then we could go in and all edit a single document instead of,
It's free online. You plug in all the stuff and you pick what you want to do. We do it all.
Richard, is there other stuff not covered that's not on there? Arts calendars are on ours, it's not on here for Thursday.
That should be pretty all inclusive. Pam's the one that sent me the list, so.
so when the videos come out, we can also show those when we go to events and stuff like that, as well as the PowerPoint. Are there laptops other than those that can be used, or we should just use our own for workstation?
See, the 18th, the
Or a monitor?
Juneteenth event, Flick and Float, what's
I did not put what zone events on there.
okay.
We can talk to Kelly and see. Typically, these groups have not gone to wet zone. They're after hours, and so you don't want kids in the pool around your electronics.
And
So
then there's a paddling event on the 25th at Paddle Point Park, it was 8:30.
that one is not on there.
Not
If that's Olympic Day, it's not on there either.
Eric, to your point, I'll ask Drew if he's just take a video file for each one of them, we just put them on the desktop or laptops.
Or even if it's on YouTube, we can run it from there.
That,
if
he
you have a
will put them on
hotspot.
YouTube is what he'll do. So
Well,
they
you may
will.
not have connectivity out somewhere where you're doing outdoor.
Okay, yeah, if you can just do them as a, MP4 or something.
And maybe it's typically these things are YouTube, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, if it's anything on the green here, we can probably pick up the guest Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Well, and we can always get, we're not gonna be able to get a bunch of them, but Joey may have a couple of Wi-Fis that we can just issue out with the equipment. That would take care of that problem, so.
I'll test it out.
Yeah.
All right, so any specific agenda items for the next meeting? We are meeting on June 4th. Oh, did we finalize times for the tour? The tour to Rowlett?
8 o'clock, but when we post it, it'll,
They come be here at 8.
yeah.
Okay, all right, so
We're working
June,
on the schedule now to make sure that we have those main facilities. We're not gonna go to every single, like, you guys probably won't stop in the library. Library's challenges are that they need their own building and it needs to be bigger, right? They don't have all the maintenance challenges, but feel free to stop by the library at any time. But Erica, unless you want that added, I did not, on my list I sent Laura today, include that one. I included
That's fine.
this PD, I don't think I might have changed it. This PD, fire admin, animal services, public works, parks maintenance, and RCC. And I don't necessarily know, I don't know that you have to go to the library and RCC, to be honest with you.
well, the library, I mean,
Right.
it's pretty obvious. I mean, we're not,
It's the
our
space-
choices are eventually
it
we
is-
get a library, we
yeah.
continue to lease in the current
Right.
space or another
Right.
solution, so.
Other boards have an agenda item where the city council provides input. Do we need something like that on our agenda?
I think we
Agenda
haven't,
item.
I think we have something that needs to be done, but it's really the city council's job is to appoint a liaison, a city council liaison to this
And at some
commission.
point that may happen, I don't know if it'll happen quick enough for you guys, it'll all
Right.
depend on how long this drains out, right?
Um,
I think that's why Blake's here tonight, is to help out in that role, right? He asked me and I said no, and so,
So the next time we're meeting in person is June 4th. And then do we have, when's our next regularly scheduled meeting? This one was a special.
First and third Mondays in June.
Okay, okay. So
So
that'd
that'd be
be-
Monday after the 4th.
and if on Friday they say, we're not gonna do a November bond election, doesn't really matter when, but if the answer is we are not going to be prepared in June, we will go back to the first Mondays.
Okay,
Until we have we wanna do it in May, or we wanna do it in November, or we wanna do it in 2029, whatever that looks like, right?
okay.
Because that will extend your time, and you won't be as pressed where you have to meet twice a month, so.
So I think the agenda items, a couple of agenda items will just be to, if we get our events that we'd like to assist with, to kind of confirm that, get the location of where these kits will be and the process for checking them out, or what the checkout process is. The flyer, I guess, if you just want to send it out, Angie, when you get it, and we can just
Yeah.
make recommended changes. And then if we do have any results back from the survey, we can just kind of see if anybody's, just out of curiosity, more
Do you want to
than.
keep subcommittee reports?
Do we want to keep subcommittee reports? Yeah, I think so. If nothing else but progress, please.
Do we need to do any kind of like, real basic, but just a quick down and dirty how-to on the laptops or kiosks, just to actually physically do it? I know I feel better if I sit here and do it one time or something, just so I see how it works. Could we maybe have a quick,
Yeah, the differences between the kiosk and
a quick demo session?
So the tour is June 4th, the next meeting is June 6th,
We meet here at 8 a.m.
Yes.
on the 4th, yes.
here.
We'll have a rolling quorum. On the mess.
If possible for them, yeah.
So I do have, by the way, was there any other new business for tonight? Or any other items for tonight?
Or any items to add for the next
Or
agenda.
any items after the next agenda? I do have a legal question, but we don't have our city attorney available to answer it.
I have one more question for you. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, so I can forward the question, or it's around the Hereford Pond. I just want to make sure, or the proposed Hereford Pond. I just want to make sure that we're okay on that.
You're leaving us in suspense.
Yeah, what's the question? We may know
Well,
the answer without asking.
Okay, so that was one of the items on the last bond that got, and I thought there was a time
Only if it
period
was
that had
a
to
CO.
elapse.
You can't do a CO, you can't do a GO and it get not approved and then do a CO.
Okay, all right. So there you go.
You can't spend money on something that didn't pass.
Right. You can't spend other money other than bond money on something.
Okay.
So,
But you
for
can
instance,
rebond it this soon.
absolutely. For instance, we could not issue a certificate of obligation to pay for Hereford Park
Right.
because it did not pass well, and it was a holistic thing, right? So
Right.
even that is a little gray, but that's,
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
that's-
that was my question. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going
Yeah,
to get the vote done.
I do have one request. When you email Laura and I, please copy Eric as well. Don't just send me emails, send it to Laura, Eric, and I, because that way the entire group sees it and it keeps Eric in the loop of what's going on. If I respond to you, I'm gonna copy everybody because that's what, I mean, not the entire board because that's a quorum, but that keeps Eric in the loop of what all's going on. He's really the person that's the chair of the board, so,
That's vicious.
sucker.
So anything else tonight? Okay, well, hearing nothing, would you like to, anybody like to entertain a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
I don't think anybody's gonna say no, so.
Right?
Unanimous?
You
How's that?
actually don't need to do a motion
I know.
to adjourn.